Every gardener makes the same mistake at the beginning. In winter, with seed catalogs open, the list grows quickly. New varieties, unfamiliar crops, things that look impressive on paper, but demand conditions your garden may never reliably provide. By spring, reality intervenes. Space is limited, time is limited, and decisions are made under pressure, often with whatever is available at that moment. After enough seasons of repeating this cycle, something shifts. Experienced gardeners stop chasing long lists. They build a core list. A small group of crops that get planted every single season without hesitation. Not because they are trendy, not because they look good in a catalog, but because they have proven themselves, repeatedly. These are the crops that produce reliably, the crops you understand deeply, the crops that would leave a noticeable gap in your kitchen if they disappeared for even one season. And more importantly, these are the crops where your knowledge compounds. Each season you refine timing, you identify the exact variety that works in your conditions. You recognize early signs of stress before they become failure. By year 3, the same plant is no longer the same plant. It performs better because you do. Today, this is not a list of everything worth growing. This is something far more valuable. 12 crops that have earned a permanent place, chosen through seasons of testing, failure, and refinement until nothing else could replace them. Some will be obvious to you. A few will surprise you. And at least one is probably already in your garden, just not performing the way it should. And this is where it gets practical, because for each crop, we are not just naming it. We're breaking down the exact decisions and techniques that make it worth keeping. Now here's where this changes. A shorter, more intentional growing list consistently outperforms a long experimental one. Not occasionally, consistently, and the reason is precise. Every crop you grow has a learning curve, but unlike most skills, gardening rewards repetition in a very specific way, through accumulated, situation-specific knowledge. Specific knowledge, when to water and when not to. Which variety actually works in your soil, not the one that looks good in a catalog. How to read leaf color, growth patterns, and subtle stress signals before problems become visible failures. This knowledge cannot be rushed. It is built season by season. And the difference it creates is not small. A crop in its first year is unpredictable. A crop in its third year becomes controlled. Year 3 advantage, you know its timing. You've selected the right variety, you've already made and corrected the mistakes. The result is a measurable increase in both yield and quality from the exact same space. Now compare that to an experimental crop, new variety, unknown behavior, no pattern recognition. Every decision is reactive instead of informed. Even if the crop has potential, you never reach it, because you never stay with it long enough. This is why experienced gardens look different. They are not filled with everything. They are built around what works, predictable yield. The 12 crops in this system are not random selections. They are the result of repeated performance under real conditions. Each one has earned its place through reliability, efficiency, and the depth of knowledge built around it. And for each one, there is a specific reason it stayed, while others were removed. Because the real advantage is not just what you grow, it is what you understand deeply enough to grow well. Now let's move into the first crop. The first permanent crop is not chosen for convenience. It is chosen because nothing replaces it. Cherokee purple tomato sets the standard that every other tomato gets measured against. This is an indeterminate heirloom, meaning it grows continuously through the season, producing large fruits that regularly reach 12 to 16 ounces, with vines extending 6 to 8 feet under full conditions. But the reason it stays is not size, it is flavor. A balance of sweetness and acidity that does not lean too far in either direction, layered with a deep, almost smoky richness that develops only at full ripeness. This profile comes from a combination of high sugar content, high acid levels, and dark pigmentation compounds that also contribute to its nutritional density. Most tomatoes do one thing well, this one does everything well, but only if harvested correctly. This is where most growers get it wrong. Cherokee purple should not be picked when it looks fully red. The correct stage is earlier, when the shoulders shift from green to a muted brownish-pink tone and the fruit yields slightly under pressure. Too early, and the flavor is flat. Too late, and the structure breaks down. At the right moment, it becomes the reason you grow tomatoes at all. Then comes structure. This is a heavy plant producing heavy fruit. Standard cages fail by mid-season. A proper setup means a 6-foot stake driven deep into the ground, or a strong trellis system that can carry full vine weight without bending. Because when support fails, fruit never reaches full maturity. And that removes the entire advantage of growing it. One final detail, and it compounds over time. Cherokee purple is open pollinated. Seeds saved from the best fruit will reproduce the same genetics next season. Meaning each year, you are not starting over. You are refining performance specifically for your garden. And this is exactly what a core crop is meant to do. But this is only the beginning. If Cherokee purple is the flavor benchmark, Sungold is the reliability benchmark. This is the cherry tomato that outperforms everything else. Not in one category, but across all of them. It produces early, it produces continuously, and it produces in volume that most varieties cannot match. Sungold is an indeterminate hybrid, reaching maturity in as little as 57 days, then continuing without pause through the entire growing season. But again, production alone is not enough to earn a permanent place. It stays because of flavor. Intensely sweet, balanced with high acidity and layered with a distinct tropical note that experienced growers often describe as mango-like. In blind tastings, it consistently ranks above other cherry tomatoes, which makes it one of the few crops in the garden that disappears as fast as it is harvested. But it comes with a specific weakness. Sungold has thin skin. This gives it its texture, but also makes it vulnerable to splitting, especially after inconsistent watering or rainfall. Preventing this is straightforward, but must be done deliberately. Maintain consistent soil moisture with deep watering. Apply a thick organic mulch layer, around 3 inches, to stabilize conditions. Avoid overhead watering entirely. And most importantly, adjust harvest timing. Do not wait for every fruit to reach peak color. Harvest when the majority of the cluster turns golden orange. Slightly underripe fruits continue to ripen off the vine with minimal loss in quality. Overripe fruit splits and invites disease. Then there is the harvest method itself. Sungold grows in long trusses, often 15 to 25 fruits per cluster. Instead of picking individual tomatoes, cut the entire truss at once. It is faster, cleaner, and extends shelf life when stored stem on at room temperature. And visually, it transforms the harvest. A bowl of full Sungold trusses on a kitchen counter is not just productive, it is proof of a system working exactly as intended. And this is where consistency becomes visible, because when a crop produces like this every season, it stops being an experiment. It becomes a foundation, and this is where the system starts to expand. When you have a reliable winner like Sungold, you gain the confidence to push the boundaries of your entire garden. It's more than just a tomato, it's the anchor of a high-performance growing strategy. Flavor, reliability, and sheer production volume, that is the Sungold promise. Join us in the next segment as we explore the next essential variety for your foundation garden. Most greens are productive, very few are controllable. Dazzling blue kale earns its place because it solves one of the most persistent problems in leafy greens, pest management. Unlike curled or heavily textured varieties, this kale produces flat, broad leaves. That single structural difference changes everything. Aphids are immediately visible. They do not hide in folds or creases. And they can be removed instantly, often with nothing more than a direct stream of water. No delay, no buildup, no guesswork. This turns pest control from a reactive process into a controlled one. And over a full season, that difference compounds into significantly healthier plants. But its value does not stop at management. In moderate climates, this plant does something most annual greens cannot. It survives winter. Instead of removing it at the end of the season, you leave it in place. By early spring, it produces a second flush of growth, often stronger than the first. Then comes an additional yield most gardeners overlook. Flower buds. Harvested early, they have a mild, broccoli-like flavor. Left to open, they produce yellow flowers that attract early season pollinators when little else is available. One planting, multiple phases of production, and that changes how the plant fits into the system. Then comes the harvest method. Most growers wait too long. They allow leaves to reach full size, which slows regrowth and reduces overall yield. The higher performing approach is earlier and more frequent. Harvest at 4 to 6 inches, cut just above the growing crown. Repeat every 10 to 14 days. The regrowth is faster, the texture is more tender, and the flavor is noticeably sweeter. Over time, this creates a continuous harvest cycle rather than isolated yields. And that is the defining characteristic of a core crop. Not just that it grows, but that it produces on your terms, and this is where resilience becomes essential. True resilience isn't just about survival. It's about maintaining productivity under any conditions. When you control the variables from pests to harvest timing, the garden transforms. That is the power of the dazzling blue, the most controlled green in the garden. Most gardeners stop growing squash not for lack of interest, but because of failure. Zucchini is often destroyed mid-season by squash vine borers. The plant looks healthy until it suddenly collapses, and by the time the damage is visible, it is already too late. Tromboncino changes that. It belongs to a different species that vine borers simply cannot successfully attack, which means while other squash plants are dying, this one continues growing without interruption, not protected, not treated, unaffected. This is not a single-purpose crop. Pick it young for a dense, mild summer squash, or leave it to mature into a long-lasting winter squash with deep orange flesh. One plant, 2 crop categories, extended harvest window. But to unlock it, structure matters. Grown vertically, the fruit hangs straight, airflow increases, and the canopy creates shade below, lowering soil temperature and preserving moisture. This shaded space can even support additional crops underneath. Which means this is not just a plant, it is a structural element in the garden, a vertical layer that produces, protects, and stabilizes the system around it. And once a crop reaches that level of reliability, it stops being optional, it becomes permanent, and this is where long-term value starts to matter. Most crops operate on a short timeline, plant in spring, harvest in summer. Garlic does not follow that pattern. Hardneck garlic is planted in fall, and not harvested until the following summer, 8 to 9 months in the ground. At first that seems inefficient, but what it produces during that time changes the equation entirely. Garlic does not give you one output, it gives you 2. In late spring, it produces scapes, the curling green flower stalks that emerge before bulb formation completes. If left on the plant, they reduce bulb size. If removed at the right time, they redirect energy back underground. The result is measurable. Larger bulbs, often a 20 to 30% increase. And the scapes themselves are not waste. They are a separate crop, mild, tender, and usable in cooking, from stir-fries to pestos, during a short seasonal window when fresh garlic flavor is otherwise unavailable. Then comes the main harvest, fully formed bulbs, lifted in early summer, cured, and stored. Unlike most crops, garlic does not demand immediate use. Properly cured hardneck varieties store for months, in some cases through the entire winter, which means one planting supports the kitchen long after the growing season ends, but this only works if timing is correct. Garlic requires cold exposure to form proper bulbs. This process, vernalization, happens naturally when planted before winter. Plant too late, and the plant fails to divide into cloves. Instead, it produces a single round, small and inefficient. Correct timing is non-negotiable, typically 4 to 6 weeks before the ground freezes. That window determines the entire outcome. Then comes selection. Different hardneck types offer different trade-offs. Some maximize flavor, some maximize storage, some maximize bulb size. Choosing correctly depends on your goal, not just availability. And once that choice is refined over seasons, the result becomes predictable. A crop that asks for patience, but returns consistency, storage, and dual harvests. And that is what qualifies it for a permanent place. Because the value is not just in what it produces, it is in how long it continues to provide. And this is where efficiency starts to scale. Most productivity problems in the garden are not about growth, they are about visibility. Green beans on a green plant are surprisingly difficult to harvest efficiently. Pods hide in foliage, get missed, and quickly become overripe. Purple pole beans solve it immediately. The contrast is clear. Deep purple pods against green leaves are visible from a distance. No searching, no guesswork. This can reduce harvest time by nearly half. These are pole beans, meaning they grow upward, not outward. A single trellis converts vertical space into high production. More output per square foot, better airflow, and harvesting becomes a comfortable standing task. Below the soil, they are nitrogen fixers, capturing fertility from the air. At season's end, cut the plant at the soil level. Leave the roots to feed the next crop cycle. This makes pole beans a powerful soil-building tool. Varieties like the heirloom Trionfo Violetto offer flavor as much as color. The real benefit was never just the color, it was the efficiency and health the color made possible. Adaptability is everything. Every garden has problem areas. Too much shade, heavy soil, poor drainage. Most crops fail in these conditions. Rainbow chard does not fail. It is one of the few crops that performs reliably where others struggle. Partial sun is enough, clay soil is acceptable, even imperfect drainage can be tolerated, which makes it the correct solution for the spaces most gardeners ignore. Instead of forcing demanding crops into poor conditions, this plant matches the environment and produces anyway. But its real advantage is time. Rainbow chard is a biennial. Year 1, steady leaf production. Winter, survival in moderate climates. Year 2, a stronger, faster spring flush before final flowering. One planting delivers across multiple seasons. No replanting, no reset, and that changes how you allocate effort. Because while annual crops demand attention every season, chard continues producing from an established base. Then comes the harvest system. Instead of removing the entire plant, you harvest outer leaves individually. The center continues growing rapidly. This creates a continuous cycle. Harvest, regrow, repeat. With proper spacing and consistent cutting, a single plant can produce for months without interruption. And because leaves are taken at a younger stage, quality improves. More tender, less bitter, more usable. Then there is a secondary function, often overlooked. The stems, red, yellow, orange, white, are visually strong enough to function as design elements. Borders, edges, containers. Spaces that would normally be decorative can become productive without losing visual appeal. Which means this is not just a crop, it is a solution for difficult beds, for long-term production, for efficient use of space, and once a plant proves it can perform where others fail, it becomes indispensable. Reliability is proven under pressure, and this is where timing starts to shift in your favor. Most peppers peak too early. By late summer, production declines. By early fall, many plants are already finished. On-screen key text, late season production. Biquinho operates on a different timeline. It builds slowly, then peaks exactly when other peppers are fading. From August through October, it reaches its highest output, which means when your kitchen loses fresh peppers, this plant is just getting started. That timing alone gives it a permanent place. But timing is only part of the value. On-screen key text, flavor profile. This is not a standard hot pepper. The experience itself is deeply layered. First, you will taste a bright sweetness, then a mild warming heat, then a clean finish with no harsh burn. It is often described as tropical, slightly floral, and far more complex than typical mild peppers. That makes it usable in ways most peppers are not. Eaten whole, pickled, cooked, or processed into sauces. And unlike high-heat varieties, it does not overwhelm other ingredients. Instead, it complements them beautifully. Then there is the matter of output. On-screen key text, high yield plant. A single plant can produce hundreds of peppers in one season. Small size but extremely high volume. This creates a different kind of efficiency. Minimal prep, no slicing or deseeding required. Direct use or batch processing, which makes it one of the easiest crops to convert into preserved products. It is used for hot sauce in particular. Blend whole peppers with vinegar, salt, and garlic. And the result is something not available commercially. Balanced heat, natural sweetness, distinct character, and because production peaks late, this processing happens when the rest of the garden is slowing down, not when everything demands attention at once. That redistribution of workload matters, because the best systems do not just produce more, they produce at the right time, and this is where foundational crops begin to emerge. Some crops are grown for flavor, others for volume. Very few deliver both. Potatoes are underestimated. A freshly dug potato is slightly sweet, complex, and impossible to replicate with store-bought varieties. They offer incredible caloric density, producing a massive amount of usable food per square foot of garden space. For the best yield, use the deep planting method. Plant seed pieces 10 inches deep and hill the soil gradually as they grow. Fingerling varieties offer even better texture and a waxier, more complex flavor than standard bulk potatoes. At harvest, pulling potatoes from the soil is a tactile and satisfying return that justifies every bit of effort. When a crop combines yield and simplicity, it becomes foundational to your garden's resilience. Most herbs fail at the exact moment you need them most. Midsummer, high heat, strong sun, declining leaf quality. Thai basil does not fail. While standard basil varieties begin to bolt and lose flavor in sustained heat, Thai basil continues producing high-quality leaves deep into summer. August, September, even early fall in warmer climates. This extends the usable herb window by several weeks, exactly when most kitchens still depend on fresh flavor. But this is not just about durability. Thai basil is fundamentally different from Italian basil. Stronger, more aromatic, with notes of anise and clove. It holds up under heat and cooking, making it ideal for stir-fries, soups, and high-temperature dishes where delicate basil would disappear, which expands its use beyond a single cuisine. Then comes a decision most gardeners get wrong. Standard advice says, remove all flowers, extend leaf production at all costs. But a controlled approach performs better. Allow a portion of plants, around 20 to 30%, to flower. The purple flower spikes become one of the most effective pollinator attractors in the garden. Bees, butterflies, constant activity, at a time when pollination directly affects nearby crops like tomatoes and peppers. The remaining plants stay in leaf production. This creates a balance. Ongoing harvest and ecological support from the same planting. And because Thai basil tolerates stress better than most herbs, it remains productive even as conditions become less ideal, which makes it more than just a replacement. It becomes the reliable version of a crop that usually fails. And once reliability replaces fragility, the system strengthens, and this is where consistency reaches its peak. Cucumbers fail in a predictable way. They start strong, they produce well, then heat stress builds and quality collapses. Standard cucumbers develop bitterness under stress. Irregular watering, high temperatures, overmaturity. The result is fruit that becomes unusable, even when it looks fine. Lemon cucumber removes that failure point. It produces consistently mild, sweet fruit, even under heat stress. No sudden drop in quality, no hidden bitterness, which means the crop remains usable through the entire season. That alone makes it more reliable than standard slicing varieties. But it adds another advantage. Most cucumbers require judgment, size, firmness, timing. Miss the window by a few days, and quality declines. Lemon cucumber removes that uncertainty. When the fruit turns pale yellow, it is ready. Visible from a distance, no guesswork required. This reduces missed harvests and improves consistency, because correct timing becomes obvious. Then comes the factor of heat tolerance. In peak summer conditions begin when many cucumber varieties struggle, lemon cucumber continues producing. The plant remains stable, the fruit remains usable. Reliable growth, predictable harvest, consistent quality, that is what defines a core crop. And this is where the system reaches its foundation. Most gardens reset every year. Beds cleared, soil reworked, crops replanted. The herb bed does not reset, it improves. A properly built perennial herb bed produces continuously, without replanting, without reseeding, and with increasing output each season. 4 plants define this system. The first to emerge in early spring, sharp, lemon-like acidity, used to add brightness where citrus is not available. Once established, it returns every year, stronger, consistent, reliable, and always available. Mild onion garlic flavor from early spring through fall. Edible flowers, continuous cutting, no replanting. A background ingredient that never leaves the system. The cold season anchor, woody, resilient, and productive even when temperatures drop. Provides fresh herb flavor when most plants are dormant. Extends usability into periods when the garden typically offers nothing. The most misunderstood, and most often grown incorrectly. True French tarragon is not grown from seed. It must be propagated from cuttings or divisions. When sourced correctly, it delivers a distinct aromatic flavor that cannot be substituted. When sourced incorrectly, it produces almost nothing. The difference is absolute. Together, these 4 plants create something larger than individual harvests. They eliminate the need to restart. They survive seasonal extremes. They develop deeper root systems. They produce more with each passing year, and they remain available exactly when needed. This changes how the garden functions, because instead of rebuilding every season, part of the system becomes permanent, reliable, predictable, always active, and that permanence compounds year after year, which is why this is not just a group of herbs, it is the foundation layer. And once this layer is in place, everything above it becomes more efficient. And this is where the full system comes together. These 12 crops are not independent, they are a system. Each one occupies a different physical layer: vertical, mid-height, ground level, permanent base. Tromboncino and pole beans climb upward, converting vertical space into production. Tomatoes occupy the mid-layer, structured, supported, central to summer output. Chard and Basil fill lower, less ideal spaces, areas where light or soil conditions limit other crops. And beneath all of it, the perennial herb bed and garlic operate as a stable foundation. Nothing overlaps inefficiently, everything has a position. Then comes time. This system does not peak once, it transitions. Spring begins with perennial herbs and overwintered crops already producing. Early summer introduces garlic scapes and climbing beans. Midsummer peaks with tomatoes, cucumbers, and squash. Late summer shifts into peppers and extended herbs. Fall transitions into storage crops and overwintering plants. There is no single harvest moment. Production moves forward continuously, which stabilizes output across the entire season. Then comes the soil. Each crop contributes beyond its harvest. Pole beans add essential nitrogen back into the soil. Garlic helps suppress soil pathogens. Potatoes work to loosen up compacted soil as they grow. And when rotated correctly, each crop improves the conditions for the next. This reduces external inputs, less fertilizer, fewer interventions, more natural balance, which is the goal of any efficient system, because the highest performing gardens are not the most complex. They are the most coordinated. Each part supports another, each decision compounds. And over time, the system produces more, with less effort. But there is one final layer to this, and it is just as important as what you choose to grow. It is what you choose not to grow. It is about the space you leave for the system to breathe. When you stop fighting the land and start coordinating with it, the garden stops being work. It becomes life. The system is the secret. And once you see it, you can't go back to just growing crops.